I'm Sean Miller, head basketball coach at the University of Texas, and this is Lawyers and Longhorns.
We're glad to have you at the University of Texas.
100%.
Yeah, thank you.
How's Austin treating you?
The city of Austin is an amazing place to live. Grateful to have the opportunity to live here, and then obviously the University of Texas. Thrilled and very excited about the future.
Did you have any prior Austin ties or Texas ties, or is it all totally new in the sense of not basketball but just geography?
Well, when I came here for the press conference, it was actually the first time that I've ever really been in Austin. I've been in the state of Texas quite a bit over the years, and like everybody, I think San Antonio, Houston, Dallas, at some point you're there. I have two younger sisters that live in the Woodlands in Houston.
Okay.
And they've lived in Houston for about 20 years now. And because I'm now here as well in the state, my parents moved for the first time in their lives. They're right around 80 years old. My dad's 82, my mom is 78. They moved to Houston, right next to my two sisters about a month ago.
In the Woodlands?
So, yeah. So
I went to high school in Kingwood.
Okay.
And then my dad lived in Lake Conroe, just next to the Woodlands. It's great. You've always recruited here a bunch. I mean,
We did. Yeah, we recruited here, not always successful. It's not easy to come into Texas, and with the great choices, us being obviously the flagship university of the state. But when you think about the state itself, great coaches, a lot of terrific teams, national championship, Final Four types of programs here. So although the talent is rich, if you're coming from Cincinnati, Ohio, and you're at Xavier, or even when I was the head coach at Arizona, not easy to come into Texas and pull out.
Well, hopefully you get the state fenced off now and make it even more difficult. So your dad was a coach, huh?
If you would ask me, why am I a coach or how did it all happen, I'd really start with him. He was my high school coach at a high school called Blackhawk High School. Now, Beaver Falls, Pennsylvania, that should mean something to you guys. Does it?
Not a word.
No, Beaver Falls. Joe Namath.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, the hometown of
there
Joe
you go.
Namath. Beaver Falls is known for one thing. It always starts with him, right?
Yeah.
But my dad was my high school coach, a great high school coach, was at that high school for more than 30 years in the state of Pennsylvania.
Wow.
It's right north of Pittsburgh, which, is football country. But he really created a basketball powerhouse. But, growing up as his son, and I have a brother as well as the two sisters, basketball was at the forefront of virtually every conversation from the summer, traveling during the year. And I think that's really where the love of the game of basketball came from.
Do you find yourself saying things that your dad said as a coach that maybe when you were playing for him, you thought, I can't believe he's, making me do this or say this, and now you hear your dad echoing you a little bit in the coach?
For sure. And I think all of us, when we're younger, when you play for a coach, what you sometimes don't understand at that moment is that, what he's talking about or what you're learning will be way more valuable when your time ends as the player for him than it is at that moment. And, I think where my dad excelled is just an incredible work ethic and passion for what you do. I'm sure you guys, for example, you don't rise to where you are in your profession without a love to some degree of what you do, the passion to be great. And that sometimes I think fuels an easy work ethic where a lot of people on the outside just say, wow, you really work hard. You don't always look at it as work because you just love what you do. And so I think, from my dad, what I really try to do as a coach, and really when I was a player as well, is just, you have to love the game, right? It's still a game. And I really feel that way about Sark as I've gotten to know him in my brief time here at Texas. When he talks about football, it's a passion. It's something he did himself. He played the sport. He grew in the sport. He loves to learn. He's curious. And I think that allows you as a coach to work hard at it and what I hope is be better, be more productive.
How do you find that when you're trying to build a staff to have people that have that same love and passion for the game?
Well, that's the starting point. You're right. Surrounding yourself. And I would even go as far as to say the recruiting part as well. What I just talked about, work ethic and improvement, that's fueled by, do you truly love what you do? So I think not only in the staff you build, but just the people and players that you want as a part of your program. You start building championship type of mentality, it's going to start with obviously a great work ethic and a love for the game. I think the staff in general, no different than what you guys do for a living, it's like a soup. You need a lot of different ingredients. And I think sometimes the ingredient that maybe serves you the best is somebody who has a great strength in an area that you don't, and complementing yourselves in those maybe blind spots. As you've grown older, you recognize that you need more of this. But if you look at our staff here at Texas, I think that's what I would hope you would see. A group of people that really love Texas, that work hard, that work together, but they're not the same, that they bring different elements to the table. And you learn that when you have a young person in college sports, especially today, they're going to get great value in everybody on your staff. And when you have, different ingredients, different personalities and experiences on your staff, I think at the end of the day, the people that benefit the most are your players that are a part of your program.
What are all the different pieces that you need when you're thinking about like, hey, I need to put together a team?
They have to be, as a person, about kids, about development, about teaching. It's not being a basketball coach for the reasons that externally allow you to feel good about being a basketball coach at the University of Texas. I think the starting point is to have coaches and people that truly care about your players. The second part is that they have knowledge and they have the ability to make them better. Sometimes making them better comes from their ability to teach them how to be a better football or basketball player, baseball player, on the field, on the court. And there's a lot that goes into that. I think that everybody who comes to Texas craves improvement. I want to go there and I want to become an NBA player. And in an effort to do that, I have to add to my skill set. I have to improve. I have to grow. I need people there that can help me do that. So I think, the tactical part, the fundamentals, the teaching on the court. But the second part is, our players aren't going to ever improve as much as they can or become the best they can be unless they truly feel like they're in an environment where people care about them off the court, off the field. Vince, who's here, if you started with him and asked him who does he admire the most, that has helped him the most as a coach in his lifetime, I'm sure there's a few that he would name. And I would say that he would start with that I recognized early on that this person as a coach really cared about me as a person too. It wasn't just about becoming a great quarterback or football player, but he was able to spend time with me away from the court, away from the field, and I got to know him and he helped me get through problems off the court as well. So, when you think about building the staff, different levels of experience, what I hope the two parts that I get right all the time is we have people on our staff that really care for our players and have the ability to make them better people and better players on the court.
You're known as a great developer of talent. What do you do to hold people accountable in terms of making sure that both your staff is getting, these student athletes what they need to do inside, outside classroom, but also the players?
So one thing we do in basketball, right, the numbers are much different in all sports, and I think that's what separates sports. If you look at football, I think 105 and 85 scholarships, have a team of 105. Like, sometimes I wonder, would you recognize every person by first and last name and where they're from if I had 105 players? But for us in basketball, you have 15 total, 13 scholarships this year. So what we try to do is we break our group of 13, 15 guys into core player groups. So accountability. I'm an assistant coach. Kenya Hunter, for example, is one of our assistant coaches. And Kenya most recently came to us from Indiana, where he was an assistant coach. I've known Kenya for 25, 30 years, unbelievably experienced. He's been in the Big East at UConn and Georgetown. He's been at Indiana, played the game, know him well. So Kenya, in addition to just his coaching, has what we call a core player group. So he'll have anywhere between 2 and 4 of our players under his name. And his responsibility with that group of 4 is to just simply make that group his everyday family. So connecting with their mom, their dad, not just the bad, but the good, in regular communication, troubleshooting, et cetera. Making sure academically in life away from basketball that the people in his core player group are doing well, that they're thriving. And if they have any problems, that they have the tools to get through those problems. And so when you think about each of my staff members, or a number of them breaking that group of 13 or 15, even though in some ways that's a lot smaller than 135 or 105, we're not stopping at just a group of 13 or 15. We want to make that group 3, make that group 4, make that group 2, where every day there's touch points between somebody on our staff and the core player group. So when we meet as a staff, and let's say we're doing it every 7 to 10 days, we sit down just as a coaching staff, we'll always start the meeting at some point early on with, let's go through core player group. You know, how is he doing? Does he need some help? And it's just amazing what you can learn in that meeting when everybody's executing the core player group. You learn things that you quite frankly didn't know that a young person is going through back home. And that allows you to coach them better, learn more about them. And then the other part is, I think it starts to become a bridge towards building that relationship, that trust between the players in our staff, or a player and me as a head coach.
What's the ideal size of kind of your team? And I'm talking about 13 or 15 basketball players, but coaches. Because I see like different, like whether it's NBA or college, and sometimes it seems like there's like 4 coaches, and sometimes it seems like there's like 12.
Yeah, I won't be 100% accurate on this, but let's say you're allowed to have those 3 assistant coaches that are on the front of the bench with the head coach. You know, it's visible. You see that on TV. But if you really look behind the bench, the NBA is at a point where they almost have 1 coach per player. That's where they're at this point, because they have, player development coaches, not just one. They have, strength and conditioning coaches. Sometimes they have multiple in that area. And then they have, a number of different people, video and other types of coaches that sit behind the bench. College is not at that level, but we're all regulated by the same number. We can't have more. So when you think about it, we're right now at what you call 5 coaches that are allowed to be on the court and also go recruiting. Not all 5 can go out recruiting at the same time, but if you came visibly to watch us practice, or you just watch us what we're doing on the court with our team, we're able to have 5 assistant coaches plus me, active, teaching, coaching, engaged with the players on the court, in games, day of game, in practices, regardless of the time of year. The recruiting, all 5 are allowed to go recruiting, but not at the same time.
What's a practice look like for y'all?
Practices in basketball come in a lot of different forms, right? So if we're in the summer right now, we have 8 weeks by NCAA rules. That's what we're allowed. And we're only allowed 4 hours per week on the court. It's a rule that doesn't make a lot of sense to me, because if you were making that rule, you would learn and you would know before the rules implemented that an hour period of time with 15 people on the same court, because you're not going to get a lot done, right? So, but it is access, and so you have 4 hours a week, and you're allowed to go 8 weeks. You can go 4 1-hour workouts. You want to go whatever,
That's
45 minutes.
That seems crazy to me.
You want to go like 2-hour workouts. You can do that as well. And then players can get in the gym and work on their own, but not necessarily.
Not with a coach there.
That's right. The strength and conditioning takes care of itself. There's plenty of time for those guys. So our guys right now are lifting Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Tuesday and Thursday, they get with the strength coach on recovery, mobility. And then we generally have 3 or 4 workouts a week, but we get to 4 hours, and we have 8 weeks. So we're in week 4 of that 8. That'll end. The guys will go home for about a week and a half, 2 weeks, and then we start up. So the summer's much different. If you said, when does it really start? I'd say right at the end of September. And we have 42 days. And in those 42 days, before your season opener, you have 30 practices. Everybody in the country has the same. So 30 practices in 42 days. You map it out. You have to take at least 1 day a week off. And at that point, it'll be game 1.
Yeah. And do y'all do like offense, defense, and stations, or how do you guys set it up?
Yeah, at that point, it's pretty intense. It's 5-on-5. There's a lot of breakdown, very competitive. I would say it's the most grueling and the hardest period of time for a player, because it's consecutive practices. And by the way, that 4 hours grows to 20. So you're allowed to have, now you're a couple coaching hours a day, 5 or 6 days a week, and you're building towards that season opener. So there's a lot of practices without games. You're determining who your best players are. You're learning a lot about your team. Like this year at Texas, that period of time will be incredibly important for us, because we don't know each other nearly as well as we would have if I had been the coach for the last 4 or 5 years,
Sure.
right? So that lack of familiarity, you'll learn a lot, and I think they'll learn a lot from us as a coaching staff in that period of time. So you get through that phase, and then it's games, non-conference season, and that's when I think like the practices become blended, right? You're working to get better always, but you also are equally preparing for your next opponent.
What would be your favorite drill in practice?
I'm going to pick offense because if I pick the defensive one, that's not going to be nearly as popular
Sure.
with the guys that I'm coaching. We do something in practice where we call it 5-on-5 change. Believe it or not, it's not like us against us, orange versus white, scholarship players against scholarship players. It would be team 1, team 2, team 3 of our scholarship players, only 5, and who they would compete against would be our walk-ons, we call them like our scout team guys, right? Younger guys who aren't going to really get a lot of playing time, they're developmental, or our walk-ons. So it's 5 versus 5, scholarship versus them. And what we're doing is we're working on like our fast pace and fast execution against what the other team's coverage is. So for getting ready to play Texas A&M, they have a certain coverages defensively that they do. And we have to be able to be comfortable against how they do it. 3 days later, if you're getting ready to play Arkansas, their coverages could be completely different, right? So how do you get your offense to be efficient against these multiple coverages? It's a way for us to kind of go against the other team, play fast, and really the carrot becomes we want to score at least 1 point per possession. So you start to go do it 10 times, 15 times, you're more than 15 points, If you don't score, it's 0. If you make a 3, it's 3. If you turn it over, we'll go -1. So there's a carrot for the defense, there's a carrot for the offense. And the reason why I like it is, to me, that develops our identity and how we play offense better than any other drill. And I think that it allows everybody in our practice environment to contribute. And we pretty much do it almost every day. It takes about 10 minutes, 8 minutes. And when I'm done with that drill, I always am fulfilled from the perspective of I feel like we're on the right track to developing our team.
What's more important, offense or defense?
In basketball, you got to be good at both. Certain teams, what you learn is like you'll win more with defense with this team because we're built more for that. Let's say you have a great shot blocker or you have a physical, quick team that isn't as skilled. There'll be more games you'll win with your defense in that particular year. There are times when you have elite skill level in shooting. Think about Dirk Nowitzki, right?
Sure.
His gift offensively probably isn't his gift defensively, right? So if you're coaching him, you're going to win more games because of his elite offense. And that's the beauty of the sport of basketball. It's the ultimate two-way sport. You're not a defensive back that watches from the sidelines when the offense is on, or you're on the side when a kicking team is kicking off or receiving the kickoff. Like those are units, right? I think they build their identity in different ways. Basketball, you have to be a two-way player. You have to hold yourself accountable to both offense and defense. And I think as a coach, the thing that you've learned to get the top prize in our game, Florida, you'd say, what were they better at? They were really good at both.
Yeah, makes sense.
So that's what we aspire to build, and sounds a lot better talking to you guys at this table to do it. But through recruiting, through player development, through time and teaching, you hope that when you watch us play, that you respect our ability both on defense and offense.
When you're drawing up an inbounds play, end of a game, you already know kind of in your mind what it's going to be, or are you on the fly saying this is how the game's gone, and I thought we were going to call play 1 and we're calling play 2 instead?
Yeah, so when I talk to Sark, I think it's like trick plays for him, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where you already have worked on them. You know what works for your players. Like which guy are you trying to get the ball? By the way, which guy do you want to not have the ball anywhere around, right? No decision making. We don't want him running full speed the wrong way because he's not a good decision maker in the trick plays. But in basketball, so a lot of it is that. Who do you want to get the shot for? Really, who are the 2 guys I think that you want to put in those actions? And then to me, you have to have worked on those. And you'll be surprised in basketball. You'll go weeks, a month straight. There's no scenario where that's needed. And then all of a sudden in 1 week, it'll happen 3 or 4 times. Just depending on the time score situation. So those plays, underneath out of bounds plays, last second plays, side out of bounds plays are things that I think you want to work on. Your team, you want them to be comfortable so that when you're in that huddle and everybody thinks you're drawing it up for the first time, you're really going back through what you've done and practiced. I don't want to say hundreds, but for months, for weeks, where they know what to do and how to do it. You're just reminding them under pressure now, can you go out and execute it? But the theory of he's drawing something up on a napkin that no one has ever seen before, and they're going to walk out in front of the moody crowd and execute it, to me, that's not how that works.
So I've always been curious about that. So game time, do you have like one guy that calls the plays? When I say one guy, I'm talking about like
on my staff,
the shooting guard, or is there like signals, or how's that work?
So the quarterback in basketball is the point guard. Who the coach is, it's irrelevant. I think that he's the person with the ball. He's the head of the snake. You hear that a lot in basketball. If you think about it, you always look at him first. If you're on offense, generally he is the person that's pushing the ball. The ball starts with him. At least 3 other players, like they're going to be in front of him. They see him. Like he's the eyes, the voice, the pace of everything. Defensively, it's the same. If you think about the head of the snake analogy on defense, when you're playing defense, who generally picks up the other team's point guard and who's first? Who's that first in line? It's your point guard. So he's an extension of the coach, no different than the quarterback is. He doesn't call the plays per se. He's the engine. Now, he's the starting point. He's the person that is going to organize and be responsible for not only his own play and himself, but the 4 others.
I'm saying the point guard, and I'm not talking about a fast break or something like that. It's coming down the floor. Are they looking to you or a particular staff member and being like, we need to move it to this shooting guard, we need to go inside? Or is it all just muscle memory from all the practices and things like that?
Our staff calls the plays, right? So it would be like I have 2 guys on my staff that would be kind of like on the offensive side of the ball. Okay. Not that they don't coach defense, but they have the most understanding and conceptualization of our offense. Ditto for defense. We have 2 that are kind of the eyes of the defense. So when you talk about who calls the plays, I would, as the coach, I would connect directly to the point guard, but usually input is given from the bench. Those 2 guys that are on offense, they're aware of what's going on. They have their own game plan with me, and we work together. And I would say the same thing on defense. But you made an earlier observation, and you're right. Basketball is a very fast game.
Yeah,
it is. It's offense, defense. It's the type of game you can't keep playing when your time ends as a player. It's running, it's sliding, it's jumping. There's 9 people on the court with you. It's just, there's a lot going on. And I think in many ways we look at it as the ultimate team sport from the perspective that when you play the game, you're involved in everything. And so you're coaching everything as well.
What's your favorite basketball movie?
The Fish That Saved Pittsburgh. In a side note,
you were in it. Huh?
I'm in it. Yeah, for about 2 seconds. But I was a young kid. They filmed it near where I was. I'm dribbling a basketball, and a guy says, "How tall is your mother?" And that's it. But if you watch The Fish That Saved Pittsburgh, there's a lot of people that would tell you their favorite basketball movie is The Fish That Saved Pittsburgh. Dr. J in his prime was there. And it was filmed in Pittsburgh. That's where I'm from. And how I was in it, I have no idea. But I would have been about 9 or 10 years old. My favorite basketball movie is that one, for sure.
Can you still play? You still get out there and shoot with the guys sometimes? Or
No, free throws.
Free throws.
Like I said, basketball is that one sport. Ride a bike, get on a Versa climber, play golf. But basketball, it's tough to keep going, yeah.
We have a basketball court at our office. And we don't play as much as we should. What position did you play? We'll let you go. Just point guard.
Matter of fact, I played against Texas in Madison Square Garden. It was the preseason NIT right around Thanksgiving. I would call that 1991, 92 season. Tom Penders would have been the coach. Yeah. And Texas was
what
very
was that,
good.
The run and shoot? Is that what that he was famous for? Yeah, I got it.
Yep, I think Terrence Rencher would have been one of the guards on that team.
So you're the same vintage as like Bobby Hurley and all those guys. UNLV was good back then.
That's right. That's my era right there. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, it was a good one.
Yeah, that was great basketball back then.
So what position would you peg Jason to have played when he played basketball?
He looks like one of those guys that can rain threes and not miss. Probably defensively, you got to help him out a little bit. But I'd say he's a straight sniper, 2 guard shooter.
He's sneaky good. What about me?
I'm gonna say you're like Wojo that played at Duke. You're a point guard that's gonna defend and be physical and tough-minded.
I was a 4. I played AAU, which is hard to believe.
Yeah.
It just the problem is I was this size when I was in the
I was gonna say you're
in the
small,
sixth
you're a
grade.
small 4 man.
I'm a small 4.
Charles Barkley.
Thank you for having me on.
Thank you,
It's great
Coach.
to meet you guys.